In today's video, we're going to be covering the image editor PIXLR, which is an online editor, kind of like Canva, but also a little bit more like Photoshop, a cross between the two, which allows both free and premium image editing. Now we've got the three main sort of programs here. There are actually more. PIXLR-X is a very simple version. PIXLR-E is a very advanced photo editor, and we're going to explore these very quickly and show you what's possible with this program. So I'm going to go into PIXLR-X to get started. Now this is a free account at the moment. I do have a premium key, which the guys at PIXLR have actually supplied to me for the video. But if I want to, I can open an image or start a design. We're going to go start a design. I can actually choose one of these templates. Like we've got a free one here. You'll notice some of these are actually, if you get to them, some of these are actually premium with a little crown on there, so I can't use those yet. But I do have some free designs I can access. So if I want to work on this, I can actually go in and use this template, and I can make some basic edits. So I've got text here I can move around and edit. It says cheers, I can say cheers, big ears, or something like that. I can just remove it all together. There's actually some layers. On the right here, you notice we've got layers, so we've got each text layer on here. And down the bottom we have an image, which is currently semi-transparent, but I can choose to turn the visibility. The visibility is on, it's off. I can also do things like import images. So there's all sorts of options down the left here we can play with, including effects, things like that. But essentially all your tools are on the left, you've got your layers on the right, and because I'm currently looking at the free version, which we will be looking at the premium version, at the moment we have an ad on the right here as well. But what I can do is, I've got some options here with each layer. At the moment it is hidden. I can turn it on, turn it off. I can duplicate it. I can merge layers together, such as merging the layer beneath, and I can just sort of play with that and the image is there. But what I want to do is actually want to add an image into this background. So I can click here to add element or image. And for one, I have these elements here, such as, you know, little icons and arrows. These ones appear to be free. These ones are premium, as you can see by the crown. But I can add media by clicking here and adding something like this. So I can add in my own images off my computer. And then I can still play with those settings, down that opacity so it's semi-transparent, and we have a completely different look. If you go through, there are a few options like that. We've got these stars here, which I believe is an element that is locked. I can unlock it. And I can sort of move that around if I want to. I've got not as many options, I think, with this, but you get the idea. We can also go through it, and if you look at all these options on the right here, the layout and the template, we can change the background of the actual image to a purple. So you've got a different background size. We can change the page size itself if we don't want this exact size, but you can also just do that with crop and rotate. So I can actually go through and crop this image here, and I can choose an aspect ratio if I want to, but I'm going to leave it as free. So I can just come in, I can crop this. And you sort of get the idea. I'm going to hit apply down the bottom here to crop that image. And as we go, there's other options here such as cutout. So I'm going to add in another image to show you what I mean. If I go here, add media, and I pick this ball, pop it in there, I can mask this image. You can see it's actually a layer on the right over here. So if I go through and cut out, I can actually get a square, draw that square and mask that layer, and I can reveal more of it as I go if I want to. Or if I want to, I can actually use the remove mode here and remove all of it or keep all of it. I've got a few options, but what I really want to do is get this circle here and mask it there, but I've sort of kept everything in place. So I need to actually remove that mask. So I'm actually going to go to undo until we get back to the start. Choose this circle, kind of line it up where I think works best. And I've now got that cropped. And I can go over here and choose my arrange and style and move that around as I see fit. I can also transform. So if I want to rotate this, I can rotate it, change the size, and I can sort of change the aspect ratio, but if I hold down shift, it locks that aspect ratio in place. So you've got a lot of options here, including effects. So we've got all these different like effects to change the color of the image, and you can see here what kind of effect it applies. So maybe I've got the purple and apply that. So there's a lot of options with this, and I've got to say, as far as online editors go, this is definitely one of the better ones. And just keep in mind you also have other things such as adjustments and effects. So I'm going to quickly add in some more media. I'm going to add in this photo of this woman here. And with my adjust and filter, I can fill and blend. The amount needs to be pulled up. So there you go. You can actually add a color if you want to. There's toning, in which case I can create a toning highlight of, say, yellow, and shadows blue to create like a two-tone image effect, which I think is actually pretty cool, but I'll tone that right back again. There's scene, so I can add a vignette. So if I move this over, back to arrange and style. I can add a vignette around the corners here under the effects. I can dial it back, glamour it. So the vignette will go white to the left, black to the right, or I can bring it to the center. The glamour just sort of highlights things a little bit. Bloom to sort of overexpose or dehaze. So you've got some pretty cool ways to bring out certain things in the image. Now I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit. First of all, we're going to cancel and not apply those. Zoom in, go back to our adjustments, and I can sharpen it right up. As you can see, it's bringing out some of the noise by sharpening it. Clarity, I can increase the clarity so it highlights the edges, and I can also smooth that out. I can even blur it if I want to, add a grain. So you got a lot of options here, including light again. So highlights, we can crank the highlights up, bring the blacks up or down, increase the contrast, exposure. You can play and edit your images pretty well in here, including the color. Saturation can go right to full, or you can bring it down and give it a muted effect, add a bit more vibrance, change that temperature around a bit. Having a play with these settings can be a lot of fun to try and get a particular effect on your image. So I'm going to cancel that now, and of course we also have effects here, which I mentioned before, such as artsy. And with the artsy effect, you can add things like this glitch effect, which I think is actually really cool. This mosaic effect. I can also change the slider to get different levels, and with the glitch I can actually do a similar thing, although I found that quite often that's what happens when I bring it down too much. I just lose the image. This effect I think is very cool, the Frank effect. Sort of gives you like a multiple sort of like overlay where it moves those colors and separates them. Pinvet, night vision. Check out some of these effects for yourself. They're pretty cool, pretty handy, especially things like the glitch effect. I think are really quite cool and pretty handy to use. And then of course you've got some basic brush tools. So if I go down here, I've got liquify, which is kind of like Photoshop in the sense that if I get a nice big brush here, I can choose to push things around like this, undo, or I can do like a swirl effect, which if I do this here, you can see it's swirling up. I can actually restore. This is a restore brush as well, and I can shrink things. I can make her face smaller if I want to, and enlarge it, which it won't have the same effect, but you get the idea. So the liquify effect is great, and you've got your brush settings over here, so when you crank the strength right up, you can really go nuts with it. And the density, so you can really go over the top. It's got a lot of really cool features, and this is still just the free version. Now retouch, I'm going to actually close this and we're going to undo. Retouch is one of those things where I believe if I want to say edit out this zipper, I can sort of paint over it and it will sort of try to gather information from around that area. So if I put the size up, I can go object. This is a premium tool, so I'll go back to spot and try and remove various areas. So if I want to remove a mouth, I could actually paint over it and it will kind of do a job at removing the mouth. Not perfect, but you know, you can sort of do things like that with it's kind of like the healing brush in Photoshop. And of course, you've got good old-fashioned paintbrush tool. You can change your color. You can pick a different color altogether. You can change the softness. You can have it right down so you get a hard brush or a very soft brush. And the size as well, obviously we can crank that up or down and even make it semi-transparent. So we can do a lot of the things you would do from the basic level of Photoshop, not so much. Of course, we have an eraser, so we can erase areas of the image. We've got the pen tool. Once again, now we have a few other areas here, such as sketchy. I'm actually going to turn this up a bit So you can see you get this kind of sketch effect, which I think is pretty cool. Crayon, so you get like a crayon look. I'd go through and check these out if you're interested in them. Once again, there's a link in the description for this if you want to check it out. So you've got all these cool brushes you can use to paint over your images. And again, glitch, another effect we can use. We've got a few different options. Now this is premium, so we'll come back to this, but we've got these glitch effects. Focus, another premium effect, so we can add a soft blur and focus on certain areas. So if I can come across using these tracking bars, I can actually move the focus around. So a lot of these are premium. Dispersion is also premium. You can add like these cool effects where things go flying off. So that's pretty cool. So for now I'm going to close out. I'm not going to worry about saving it. And if we go back up the top here to PIXLR-X, now this can be confusing because on the home screen these two were switched around. X is first and E is second. E is the more advanced editor. I'm going to quickly show you how that works. Once again, I'm going to open up an image. And this is looking a lot more like Photoshop. We've got a layers panel on the right here. I can add layers if I want to, such as text layers, and I can do my typing in there. And we've got our usual choices such as fonts. So if I actually enlarge this, pop it here, I can choose a different font, something thick. I can add a bit more size to it. And you got other adjustments here such as your line space and your letter space. You can bring the letters in tighter, bold, italics, all the usual bits and pieces that you can usually do in, say, Canva or Photoshop. And you can decrease the size of the box here, or you can resize the whole thing by using the bottom slider, which is pretty cool. And now check out this. This is a lot like Photoshop. I'm going to go through and delete these two layers over here on the right. And you've got a history over here and also a navigator so you can zoom in and out. Very much like Photoshop. There's other options here like animation. I haven't played with that yet, so I don't have a lot to sort of go through. We have all of our filters here, like the glitches and the bits and pieces we had before. You can play with those filters and get some pretty cool effects. And like I said, if we go with glitches, I can do an RGB split and play with that and get some pretty cool results that way. I can change the colors around. So we've got this cool split effect. But otherwise, the tools here are mostly the same. We do have liquify, we have crop, we can also mask like we did before. We have the wand select, which is also again like Photoshop, so I can choose certain areas and delete them. And we see our transparency grid behind that. So we've got also the clone tool. Another thing that's a lot like Photoshop. So if I actually go through and pick an area like the eye, or should I actually stop? I'm going to click off, click back, and I'm going to pick the eye. And now I can draw another eye here. If I zoom in, I'm holding down Alt and my mouse wheel. You can see the eye has been added on there. And if I hold down Shift, I can actually resample the other eye and draw it over there. So the clone tool could be handy for restoring photos and just doing fun things. Blur, sharpen, and smudge. If I click on that, I can blur areas. Or if I go up here, I can choose sharpen or smudge to sort of smudge areas around, which is also a handy tool when you're trying to sort of edit photos. Focus. Now, once again, we're going to go to premium in a minute and check this out. Mask. We can actually go through and mask and add in, sorry, not mask, the effect, which is dispersion, I believe. And we mask the area we want to disperse. I'm actually going to reset. So a lot of the same tools are here. The pen, the brush, the eraser. We have color replace, which I haven't actually used yet. But you can see it kind of acts like the clone tool, where it picks up a source and clones that across the page, I think. I'd have to play with that one a bit more to tell you. We also have a fill tool, so I can pick a color. So if I've got just like in Photoshop as well, if I click on this here, I go to this sort of cyan-ish color. I can use the fill tool to fill in certain areas. I can also frame, so I can draw a frame here for the image holder, and you'll notice it appear on my layers panel. I can click on it, I can add an image to it, so I right click, or I think I double click, and I add in this image, so I can add that to a frame. And I can double click, move that image around within the frame, resize it. Now here's the cool thing about the image frames. if I go to shape, I'll actually click out of that. I can change the shape from a square to something else, like this asterisk sort of thing, and get like different shapes and styles. I can have an outline on there and choose a color such as red, and you can see we've got this red outline. There's so many things we can do in this program. Shape, so we can actually just draw basic shapes like a square, or there's other shapes in here, same shapes as we have with the framing tool. I can draw this shape in here, change that color to something we can actually see. So it's a very cool editor, and this is a step up. If you do get used, or you're trying to learn these editors, you could start with the simple editor and then move on to the advanced editor to kind of learn more if you were inclined. So that is pretty much how PIXLR works, and that is all the free sort of options, but there are some cool other sort of areas and options available, which we will explore very quickly. What I'm going to do, we're going to close this. So I go File and Close. If I head back out, we've got some other things here like Photo Mash, where you can sort of create things like ID photos. You can see here, this is a premium one, and this one is not. This one's pretty basic. It's pretty straightforward. It's free. So you've got a few different options. We're going to explore these in a minute with the premium version. Remove the background. We have an AI background remover and a batch editor if you want to actually edit photos in bulk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over, and we're going to actually go to the premium version and go through some of these with some of the extras. Okay, so I've got my premium version activated, and I'm going to head into PIXLR-E, which is the more complicated photo editor. And a lot of the features we didn't have before, I'm just going to open up another image. They're now available to us because we have the premium feature. Some of them you'll find it still has the crown on it, like AI Auto Mask. I can click on that, and it automatically cuts out the image, which I think is pretty cool. And if you want to take it further with cutting out that image, you can go use the AI sort of cutout program, which we're going to check out soon. But you do just get access to everything, or select subject. So if I undo and go to select subject, you're basically getting the same thing, and we can mask things that way, or we can just go copy and paste. So edit, copy, edit, paste, and I can turn this layer off and sort of do it that way if I want to. And I can save this as a transparent PNG and go save the PNG. I can save as other file formats. So I have a lot of options here available to me. And once again, you can see most of the sort of premium features still have the crown there, but we can go through, have a bit of fun with it, and I just recommend exploring that. But what I want to do is actually go through to Photo Mash, because down here we have this. I think there's a pretty cool effect, or these effects here. If I want to, I can choose this one here, and I can choose to put someone in there, because I can now have the ability to use this now that I have the pro feature. So I'm going to change photo. Once again, I'll choose this photo again, because it's the one with a person in it. It'll cut it out and add in all those effects automatically. So now I can create this cool sort of background, but I can also go through and make edits. So the background here, I can choose something completely different. I can also just choose gradient. I can close it, and I can change the outline a bit too. If I want to make it blurry, I can do that as well, or I can keep it like a green color. And I can choose the color down here. I can just change the softness. I can make it super thick. I've got so many options here to really customize a nice profile photo. I can adjust the shadow or an effect. So going through and adjusting the glitch, I can add in all those effects from our previous photo editor, and have a bit of fun with that too. Once again, there is a link in the description if you want to check this out. So it's pretty cool. I can now save that as a PNG, and I'm going to head on back. So it's pretty cool, some of the options. You can scroll through. There's so many different designs on here you can play with. But yeah, it's a very handy if you're creating a lot of profile images. You can use Photo Mash for that. Now, the Remove Background Auto AI Remover is probably one of the cooler features as well, because I can select my photo, same photo as before. It'll think about it, And now if I click on it, I can choose to save it, or I can fine tune, which is a pro feature. So I'm going to go into fine tune, and I can go through and kind of like take some areas here where I can fine tune some of the hair and see what results I get. So it's added that in. So I'd much rather remove, but let's go to remove here, and I can adjust the background removal like that. I'm holding down Control, or I'm just using my mouse wheel, I should say. It doesn't really matter what I hold. So I can just go through and really kind of smooth that out. I can soften it. I can do a light soften, medium to get like an even softer look. I can crank that right up to get a much larger brush, or I can get a smaller one. So you can actually go through and further remove some of these features while removing a background. There's the magic tool, which I guess chooses an area and just removes it. So that's a pretty cool effect. It's actually kept some of the highlights in there. There's also the lasso tool, so I can highlight an area and just sort of chop that out. Going to restore, add that back in. So that background remover is pretty cool. It's a nice simple little tool for removing backgrounds. So having the ability to access that is also obviously very cool. The batch editor is also a very handy tool. This would be great for social media, or if you're just wanting to do a basic edit in some photos. If I open this up and select all of these photos, I can actually go through, I can crop these and choose an aspect ratio, so 1:1, and I can also make it 16:10. So I can choose a basic crop that I want to use across the board to get the same size image. I can also resize to a certain size. So at the moment it's 500 by 500. So maybe I choose 700 by 1400. Add that in. Vibrance, so I can do this across the board to all photos. I can bring it down so it's a little bit more muted, and then do something different again and crank that saturation up, and it does all the images at once. So you can go through and make all of these adjustments to all your photos all at once with the batch editor, which is pretty cool. We've added the bloom effect in there, grain, and I can export all these as JPEGs, high resolution. I can add a new folder, and I'll say it'll give me a zip file I can download. And now I can actually open this up and see what it's done. I haven't actually applied the crop, so they're not cropped. I would need to go back in, and where I have the crop feature, I'd have to actually add that for it to stick, but you get the idea. So that's essentially how that works. You can batch edit photos. Kind of reminds me of Lightroom, but obviously a lot simpler. So you do have some pretty cool sort of features that way. So now we're going to go back into PIXLR-X, open up one of our images again, and explore some of these features. So these were some of the pro features we couldn't use before, such as the glitch. There's a bunch of different glitch options we can try. So at the moment, we've got slicer. Although this layer is currently turned off, so I'm going to turn it back on and hide that one. So now we have the slicer, so we can change, and you can see it moving as we do that. All of these sort of sliced up effects, which is cool. Interference. So we can actually go through and customize our glitch effect, which I think is actually really, really awesome. Because quite often when it comes to effects like this, you get like a couple of basic options and that's it. But with this glitch effect on PIXLR, we can actually have a bit of fun and get good results by customizing how far we take things. And then of course we have different areas of that. We can choose different glitches like this one. This is more of a sort of a different effect. We can add scan lines, which are pretty, give you that old school scan line effect. So we've got all these different glitch profiles. We can choose random, and I can just keep on clicking that and getting random results. I can just reset and go back to the start. And also we have focus, which I think is pretty cool as well, because we can move these focus lines around. It's kind of like the tilt shift type photography you get. So soft blur, you can add that in. You can notice it's blurred right at the top and in the corners, or we can turn that off and go for a bokeh blur, which is sort of like photography with the blurry background. You can notice that the light is actually sort of turning into little circles. So like when you take a photo, and crank up that intensity a bit, or bokeh shape. So you can get some pretty cool blur effects, and I can move these areas around to highlight the area that I want. And also we can switch to a radial, so we've got different areas of blur there. Linear, so we can add a linear blur in, or we can just have none. So some of these blur effects are pretty handy, and they've really put a lot of effort into making the premium features very unique. And dispersion, once again, if I highlight this here, say one side, it'll disperse off to the right. Maybe I want to change that. Maybe I change the direction. So now she's going off to the left. I can change the shapes to hexagon, square, triangle. You can see the different effects here. You can mask. You can actually play again. The spread, it's very straight. Keep it down. So some pretty cool little features there when it comes to that premium account. And again, if I go back out and I head into a more advanced photo editor, which is PIXLR-E, open up a different image. It's all here in the filters. We've got glitches, we've got creative. We still got our dispersion effects. Once again, I can do the same thing. However, our options are sort of up here. So it's just kind of a different location for the same effect, but you just get a little bit more advanced editing. And once again, it's a lot more like Photoshop. We can have this dispersion going off. We can go hollow, which is a pretty nifty effect on its own. So going through, playing with some of these settings, it can be a lot of fun, and I would recommend checking out the premium version if you look at using this a fair bit, especially if you don't want to go as far as Photoshop, which can be sort of a little bit over the top for some people. So this is a great tool for anyone looking to learn some basic photo editing, to get used to doing something, and you have access to it online. You don't need to keep it installed on your computer. So that way, if you end up going from computer to computer, you have your account, you can log in, have a play, and see what results you get. You can get used to it from computer to computer. You don't have to save anything. But yeah, very cool. It's a very cool feature. So check out PIXLR. There's a link in the description below if you want to check that out. If you like this video, please consider giving it a like. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day. I'll see you again soon.